this is the 3 ways to say consistently keto. So number 1, which is find your why. When I look at Grandma Rose, when I look at several of the sickest patients that have been in my support group, they're still progressing in the right direction because they looked inward and said, what is it that you're missing out on? What is the reason why you want to be healthier? And I talk intimately about that in our support group, but some haven't ever thought, like, what makes you want to be healthier? And then as much as there are a host of medical reasons why you could improve your health, I would say that's probably the least of them. You know, knowing what your why is begins with the reason why that illness, that, I mean, maybe it's psoriasis, maybe it's depression, maybe it's chronic migraines, maybe it's that your performance at work isn't what you want it to be. Maybe you want to write a book, because I think I could have never written a book had I not been on a ketogenic diet. I mean, the concentration of an improved mental stamina has continued to be one of the reasons that I stayed on the ketogenic diet. As anybody in the class who's watched that one of those first videos would know, my original why was my mom. I mean, I was curious about the ketogenic diet. I could stand to have lost a few pounds. I didn't have any appreciation for what the mental improvement was going to be. That I didn't even know that. And so when I look at my why, it was truly to be walking in a journey that my mother clearly needed a friend, somebody who loved her. And I think love is a verb. So as I was walking with her on this ketogenic diet, that was my why. But then she got healthy, and that's not my why. As much as I am motivated to be a supportive of her, it's not my why anymore. But finding your why is super important at the beginning of this. When people get to that, there's some valleys in this process, and especially if they're not prepared for them, if they come out of left field and they don't know what to do about them, they struggle for weeks. Sometimes eventually they give up, but they shouldn't give up. They should know the antidote. But if they don't have that, or if it takes their body a little longer to get to that, I contend it's remembering what you're doing this for that helps you through those valleys. The why is not a little thing. When we look at a lot of the changes that happen from the beginning to the end, your motivation ebbs and flows. I mean, as much as Mom and I, on the first 6 weeks, we were super motivated. We got to 6 weeks, we got this amazing report about a cancer that grows in white blood cells where there was no literature. I couldn't find a stinking one article to find, does CLL universally use glucose as its fuel? And of course, that's where the ketogenic diet would separate, is if your cancer uses glucose for fuel, you had a much higher rate of the ketogenic diet really suppressing the living conditions for cancer while strengthening the living conditions for the healthy cells. I mean, if you have breast cancer or prostate cancer, you actually have literature to prove that. You do not have literature to prove that in CLL, especially one that's 10 years old. It's definitely mosaic. It doesn't have the same genetic code. It's kind of morphed many times over, so we kind of did this out of a whim. We got to the end of 6 weeks and saw that it worked, and before the next 6 weeks was over, we had both kind of fallen off the wagon and had to find okay, this is for the long haul. How do you do that? And I had to tap into the things that I would tell my patients as I had to tell myself. And again, this was before the support group had started. It's before I'd written the book. But when I was asking, well, what are we doing this for, Mom, as I was trying to coach her, it is some of those deepest secrets that you may not tell anybody else, but I really need you to tell yourself, that I want to be you can say your mood's irritable. I want to be a better wife. I want to be a better mother. I want to be a better friend. And with such crabby, irritable moods, I'm not. I want, maybe your deepest secret is that you have a goal that you really do want to accomplish, that it can't happen if the health problems reign over your life so much. And so those deep secrets are worth writing down because they carry people through. And you do not need a doctor to do this. You really just need instructions. And when it comes to, is it a desire that you're looking for? Is it, again, that secret? Or is it something that's your deepest prayer, where you've been asking God for help with something, and you find it in that private place in your conversation that really is important for you to identify? And then write it down. Nobody else has to see it, but say it out loud to somebody, even if it's just God. There's an act of what happens in your brain when you write something down or you say it out loud. That process is real, and it does change a commitment. So it's not fake news, it's real. Number 2, though, is the support group. And again, Grandma Rose didn't have this at the beginning. This comes from my crazy Brazilian mama patient. And again, she is a character, a strong mother. One of the other moms in the middle school that were volunteered for everything, participated in things. If her kids were involved, she was involved. So colon cancer at her young age was a nightmare. That was awful, and she was so thankful that it was contained in a polyp, but then horrified that the doctors were saying, you can have pudding, you can have Jell-O, all the carb-filled fuels that everything in the literature had said, if you want this cancer to grow, get that sugar down, get those ketones up. And she knew she couldn't do it alone. So I said, I have a clinic that's full enough, and I don't want a whole bunch of more patients for the ketogenic diet. I can't seem to teach it to them inside the room. And that's where this idea blossomed of saying, oh, I do support groups for my addiction teams. And that's really where they heal. When they see me, I review prescriptions. I look at that statistics game of, are we headed in the right direction? But to get them to not relapse on a behavior, it is about a connectedness with other people who are struggling. Even if it's not the exact same struggle, they're struggling to try and improve themselves. And as you look at what a support group can offer, it is, number 1, oopsie, that's not motor neurons, it's supposed to say mirror neurons. Dang, autocorrect. Should say mirror neurons. And I talk about that. I have a whole chapter in the, I think it's in the first module, I gotta look, but first or second module, saying, no, it is a huge deal what mirror neurons do. And teaching your brain to do something it's never done before, watching what it's like to gift grace to someone because you just saw grace given to somebody else, yet you don't have a recorded memory that that's how it's done. Those are the types of things that you cannot teach that in a doctor's office. I can teach you the science, but that's not the biggest crick of this improvement. However, as physicians are being asked to give nutritional advice, I'm telling you, we need the support group and what happens inside a brain where they're learning about the change in behavior. The other thing that I often see inside people, especially if they've got a terrible diagnosis like cancer, they want to change everything tomorrow. And by golly, they should. I mean, I get it. Cancer scares you. It is scary. There are no guarantees. But when we look at what behavior changes and stays, it's the one that's slow. It's the one where you say, I changed that one thing, and I hope it's dropping your carbs to 20 or less. Total carbohydrates, 20 or less every day, and stay there and just do that one only. And again, that's the only thing Grandma and I did for the first 6 weeks. I mean, we did all the other things that are in Module 1. Like, I drove to her house, we cleaned out her cupboards, we cried as we threw out some of the, like peach pie filling that we made together, and it was sentimental. And we're like, no, you can't have it in the house. We have to get rid of this. It was a great memory that we made it together, but it is not a great memory to put in your body. We don't have a room for error. So dropping the carbs to 20 or less was a good idea, but the changes that are consistent, what Brazilian mama needed was slow, consistent changes. And she's Brazilian. She wanted to change everything. And then 6 weeks later, she's like, I can't do it. I'm falling off the wagon. And you're like, no, there's a support group to help you forgive yourself. It's okay. And this process it's not hard. You do not need a doctor. But that's instruction of what goes on in a support group and what should not go on in a support group. Very powerful. And there's evidence behind it. It's not like I made this up. I use this because that's what we use for other behavior changes. Now, insurance doesn't cover it very well, and that's where I said it should be free. So again, this is where I wanted to make sure I said that one of the things I like to show, especially people who are super hard on themselves, is I learned to practice grace by watching Grandma Rose as a girl. And she could forgive herself and she could forgive others amazingly. And she used her faith to do that, but I learned that. I don't remember ever not knowing that. And as I watch people super hard on themselves, not only are they hard on themselves, but the way they pass grace to others is usually has limits. Either they're keeping score or they don't let it fully flow through them into another person. And this sounds really honky, like what's it have to do with being keto? I'm telling you, it's hard to stay consistently keto without a few baseline rules about human nature, psychology of change. And you do not need a doctor to do these. May I say that again? But number 3 is what is really near and dear to my heart. I am an internal medicine doctor, and it's the succinct science.
Like, please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.